Does the comic book community overvalue 9.8s? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about that. And then at the end, I'm going to show off two new slabs I got for my collection, my first 9.8 and my first 9.6. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, we got to talk about 9.8s. That's right, 9.8s, as you guys I'm sure are well aware, in the market right now are being charged at crazy prices. And that it amazes me that there are so many people who kind of like put 9.8s on a pedestal. So in this video, I kind of wanted to, look at some of the numbers with you guys and figure out if we the comic book community, put too much emphasis on 9.8s, specifically from like kind of a return on your investment or as an investment grade. And then at the end of the video, I will show off the two new slabs I've been able to add to my collection. My first 9.8, incidentally, and my first 9.6 as well. And there's a nice little story as to how I came across those books. All right, with that being said, let us get into the topic for today. And we got to talk about 9.8s and specifically this obsession that it feels like the comic book community has over 9.8s. Like anything that is a modern comic book or a copper comic book that isn't a 9.8 is worthless. Like that's kind of like the feeling that I sometimes get from the community. And when I look at, certain books, like let's say Ultimate Fallout 4, I look at, New Mutants 98 or ASM 300, and I look at these books and see, what the 9.8s are going for. To me, it feels like there's such opportunity to pick up a 9.6 grade of Ultimate Fallout 4, a 9.4 grade of Ultimate Fallout 4. I mean, to me, it's like just being able to have a book like that, a key book of like Miles Morales is awesome to have. Like, why is there such this obsession to have it in a 9.8 grade? And I suppose the sentiment for why people want 9.8s is that they just want, what is the best. And I can understand that if that's actually how they feel. But what I wanted to look at here in this video here today is, analyze things from, numbers point of view as far as like an investment is concerned, because it was always my supposition that, I don't actually think that buying a 9.8 is going to give you a better ROI than a 9.6, because I feel like if a book is hot, a book is hot. And when that book takes off in the market, you're going to be able to be profitable no matter what grade you have. So I pulled up a couple examples here that I wanted to show you guys here today. And incidentally, it feels like the numbers kind of, demonstrate what I was thinking that they would. So I did pull up three examples here that we'll kind of go through. Of course, I have Amazing Spider-Man number 300, I have Oblivion Song number 1, and I have The Savage She-Hulk number 1. And I wanted to talk about these three books because I felt like they sort of represent different type of hot books in the market. ASM 300, obviously, there's a Venom trailer out, so we all know Venom is going to have another movie, so that's why I wanted to look at this book. Oblivion Song 1, this is one where it's like rumors came into the market, so I wanted to take a look at this one. Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be making a property about this. And then Savage She-Hulk, another book where 9.8s matter, and this is something that we know is coming in the future in the MCU. So starting off here with ASM number 300, of course, this is the first full appearance of Venom, done by Todd McFarlane. A great book, a classic book, and let's kind of take a look at the GPA analysis here. And I wanted to kind of look, comparing the 9.8 prices versus the 9.6 prices, because let's assume that you're someone out there who wanted to invest in a book. Like you had this idea, I'm going to buy this book, and then after the trailer comes out or whenever the movie comes out, I'm going to sell it. What kind of returns could you expect on a book if you were to get it at a 9.8 grade versus a 9.6 grade? Because you would think maybe that like, oh yeah, people want 9.8s. I'm going to flip the 9.8 and that's going to give me the biggest return. And, if we're talking about sheer dollar amount, I mean, there's no denying that, the dollar amount that you're going to get is going to be larger than that of the 9.6. But, the key word here that we got to focus on is the return of investment, because what did it take for you to buy that book? And then what are you getting as a return on your money? So let's take a look at the 9.8 grade here. And we're just going to look at this, calendar year of January, right? We'll just go back and we'll see, just to keep it real simple for us, just a way to kind of get a gut check on these prices. So if we look down here at the start of the year, we look at January, we take kind of like the median value of this book. It looks like, generally speaking, the 9.8 of ASM 300 was sitting around the, $4,500 range or so. And then, we go throughout this year, we get a trailer in May that kind of drives up the prices. Everyone gets really, really excited about this book. And then we kind of look at it here in the month of September. And where do we sit with this book? Well, I mean, if we're kind of looking at sort of like the median value or so, maybe we're sitting at the $6,700 range or so, kind of around that mid 6,000 figure dollar range. And then, doing sort of the calculation and the math in my head, what we're basically able to see is, we went $4,500 to like 65 or 67. And that generally means that we got a 25% return on our money, a 25% return on our investment. It's like, hey, that's pretty good, 25%, but we're talking about big numbers here, right? We had to spend $4,500 to acquire the book. And yes, we're getting $2,000 back, and that feels pretty great. But we had to, it was a big amount of money that we had to invest. So let's say that we didn't have as much money, right? We didn't have as much upfront capital that we were able to invest in a book like that. And we decided that we were going to get the 9.6 grade. Well, what would our returns be for this? So as we go down, we do the kind of the same sort of gut check sniff test calculation, and we look at sort of the January numbers, and we kind of take the median value. Maybe this book is sitting around that like $1,450 range or so, like the 9.6. This is compared to the 9.8, which we said was at the $4,500 range. So we spent around $1,450, and then we flash forward to right now, kind of in the month of September. And where do we see the prices? Well, it's sitting around kind of that like $1,850 range or so, kind of around that mid 1800s number, if we're talking about kind of like the median value. And then when we do the calculations, well, funny enough, it turns out that when you kind of do the math and you take these quick numbers, what you end up with is about a 25% return on your money. So again, you didn't quite make as much of a dollar amount. You spent $1,400, you sold it at $1,850, you made about $450. Certainly is a lot less than $2,000 if you were to do the 9.8. But the amount of money that you had to like ante up to make that investment, the amount of money you had to put in was much lower, and it was a much lower risk, so to speak, on buying the 9.6 for the ASM, yet you were still able to get the same amount of money back, the same amount of ROI on that. And to me, that's really the key number when it comes to investing in books, because you want to mitigate your risks overall. Because like obviously, if you're going to make a huge investment with a lot of money on a big book and it doesn't pop off, then you run the risk of losing a lot of money. So if you have an opportunity here at like a 9.6 grade to put a smaller amount of money in, you can still get that same amount of money back, and you'll be just as good as if you did the 9.8. And what's really interesting about this is that as you go down, the grades, if you can go down to like a 9.4 as well, you'll see that the math actually checks out as well. It's the same sort of return on your investment where, currently speaking, in September, you're around the $1,200 range. And then when you start the year, you're over here around the, $850 range or so. And when you do the math, it generally checks out to be around 25%. So no matter what grade you decided to do, 9.4, 9.6, 9.8, you're still returning around the same amount of money, 25%. So let's take a look at another book here. And this I wanted to look at was Oblivion Song #1. This, of course, was the first appearance of the Oblivion Song universe written by Robert Kirkman. It's been announced that, Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be making a movie about this, bringing this property to life, a book that came out in 2018. Robert Kirkman, of course, is the creator of The Walking Dead. So a lot of people were, really, really excited about this book. And just a few weeks ago, it was kind of announced that was going to be happening. And that specific announcement was around August 24th right here. That's why you can see so many sales. So let's again, take a look at a book like this and see like what is our ROI if we were to buy this book, at the top of the year. And we kind of take the median value and we just kind of do a quick look at this. Maybe we're sitting around the $55 range or so, maybe a little bit less, somewhere in that range. So, okay, let's call it $50 to $55. And then we flash forward here after this announcement. Where are we kind of sitting now? I mean, definitely a lot of different numbers here, but let's say we're kind of at the 170 maybe dollar range or so if we're taking kind of median values. Sort of hard to say with this book, but overall, if we're kind of going from like 55 to 170, we basically tripled our money, which is a pretty great return, right? We made 3x of our investment. So let's take a look at the 9.6 and see what that journey for this book is as well. And if we look here, definitely a much smaller sample size, but if we just look at this last number here, maybe we bought this book for $40 here in January, and then we sold it here for $130 in September. Well, 40 times 3 is 120. So generally speaking, we also made 3x of our money. So really interesting to think that, a book like this, whether you get it at the 9.8 or the 9.6, when the book gets hot, when there's announcements that Jake Gyllenhaal is going to be making a movie about it, you still make 3x of your money. So, you didn't have to pay those 9.8 premiums to make the same return on your investment, which I think is really, really interesting. And then quickly to do, the last example, just because I did pull it up, again, Savage She-Hulk #1, another book that we know is, going to get hot once we start to get trailers and things like that. And generally speaking, I just kind of want to show you guys, I'm sure you can get a sense of where I'm going to go with this, but I'm going to show you essentially that it's the same proportional value for a book like this, where, in January, maybe you bought this book around the, $700, $750 range or so. And then down here, or when you flash forward to September, now you're seeing this book being sold, let's say around the $1,200 range. So you're actually able to make 30% return on your investment, which is kind of cool to see, right? A little bit higher than 25%. So you were better off actually buying a She-Hulk book for ROI purposes than an ASM number 300. And then here again, if we look at the 9.6 grade in January, maybe we're sitting around, I don't know, $300 for this book. And then now we flash forward all the way to September, and we are hovering around, say, $550 or so. So again, doing the math, again, this kind of amounts out to being around a 30% return on your investment. So this is kind of like a really cool to me and really interesting, and thinking about, 9.8s versus 9.6s or even 9.4s as far as where investment are concerned. What it basically says to me is that, no matter what grade you have a book at, if that book is hot, it's going to proportionally gain together, like no matter what grade you have, because overall, when a book is hot, people are going to want it. It doesn't really matter what grade you have, and you're just going to be able to make sort of the same return on your investment, whether you have a 9.8 or a 9.6. And then that's kind of cool too, because then you can kind of mitigate your risk. If let's say you're going to spec on a book or you're going to invest in a book, you don't have to put up, that large amount of money up front to get the 9.8 grade. You can get a lower grade and still make the same amount of ROI, which is cool to see. Now, with that being said, let's talk about this idea of wanting to own 9.8s, because, if we're looking at it from an investment point of view, to me, I would make the suggestion that, you don't need to get a 9.8. I don't think that's necessary to spec on a thing or invest in a thing. But if we're talking about, just ownership and personal, owning of a 9.8 and wanting, the best, I understand why people want that. But it is really interesting to think about like the psychology of this, where I actually kind of feel like, and let me know if you guys kind of agree with this. I make it kind of akin to sort of like Olympic medals, where it's like, obviously everybody wants to win a gold. And then something about winning a silver medal feels worse, because you're like, oh, like you were that close to winning a gold. And then like winning a bronze medal, actually, funny enough, is sort of like, people who win bronze medals are just happy because you're like excited that at least I have a medal. And I wonder if there's some similar psychology going on here with comic book crates, where it's like everybody wants a 9.8, and then if you have a 9.6, it feels bad because it's like, oh man, like it just that close to having a 9.8. And then if you have a 9.4, it's actually preferable, because at the 9.4 grade, you're like, I'm just happy to have a book, I'm just happy to be in this camp of like owning a New Mutants 98 or whatever the case may be. So I feel like that's kind of a really interesting thing of like where the psychology comes with like, 9.8 or bust. It's like that Ricky Bobby quote, if you ain't first, you're last. But for me, I think it's ultimately kind of silly, to put so much emphasis on that, because, there's always going to be like a better 9.8 than yours. People will always say, oh, mine is 9.8. Oh, mine is 9.8 with white pages. Oh, mine is 9.8 with white pages and a newsstand. Oh, mine is a newsstand with a Mark Jewelers insert. Oh, mine is a Whitman variant. So like everyone is always trying to like top each other. And I think that that's kind of one of the reasons why, there's so much onus put on this idea, or there's, people put the 9.8 on the pedestal, when ultimately for me, I think it's just important to kind of have a book. Just being in the club is great, especially if it's a book that you actually want to own. And I have, a reason to feel that way, because I also now own a 9.6, which I'm going to show off to you guys, because this is what you wanted to see. So I was in a comic book store the other day. I had just watched the Hawkeye trailer, so I was feeling kind of good about seeing the Hawkeye trailer, and I saw this book being sold at a super, super cheap price. This was being sold for $90. Can you believe this? This is Hawkeye #1, first print, 9.6 grade. This is the Matt Fraction storyline that it looks like the Hawkeye series is going to be based off of. And being a comic book that was being sold at $90, this is where I was like, oh my god, this is like such a good opportunity for me to pick this thing up. It's like such a low investment, and I know that a book like this is going to get hot once we get the show, and kind of showcasing or talking about the numbers that I just showed you guys. Like, to me, it feels like I'm going to get a good ROI on this book, and it didn't cost me that much money to invest in it. So that's kind of why I picked up this book. I thought it was a good opportunity, and I just couldn't pass it up. And I think the cover is really awesome. And then there's also the fact too, which is like, this is a whole other conversation. But really, like, when you get a 9.6, you always have that option where you can crack it and press it and maybe resend it back in and get that 9.8 grade. So, as far as an investment is concerned, to possibly get that bump for a 9.8, that's always there on the table. And then this other book here that I got is my first 9.8, and this is kind of a really, really nice story. So, my dad, we grew up collecting comic books, and he knows that I'm still into comic books. He doesn't know that I have a YouTube channel, but he found himself in a comic book store the other week, and he's just kind of browsing, and he likes this stuff, but he doesn't really know anything about comic books. And he was talking to the guy, and he was just like, hey, like, what's like the cheapest, cool slab that you have or whatever. And so the guy was like, oh, I got this 9.8 ASM number 297, and my dad picked it up. It was like $100, and he's like, here, Mickey, here, you can have this. And I thought that was really awesome. I thought I was really touched by that. He thought it'd be just kind of cool to own a 9.8 book, because even he, has that bias of like, oh, 9.8, it's the best. So he bought me this book. Definitely really cool, like obviously not something that is ever going to be a huge key or ever going to pop off in the market. But I was actually surprised because I had to quickly look at the fair market value for this book after he got it, because he spent like $100 or $110 or something like that. And I was just hoping, I was like, oh man, I hope you didn't get ripped off, because like, it's not a key. Like maybe this only sells for like $60 or so. But incidentally, the fair market value is around 110, 115. So he got this book for market. So that was pretty cool. So anyways, this is my first 9.8 ASM 297. I feel like as far as random 9.8 books are concerned, I'm actually pretty happy with having an ASM book. It's from the Copper Age, so I really like that. I enjoy my Copper Age books. So here we are. And I think this is a cover homage to an earlier book in ASM where I think it's actually the same blocking, except Spider-Man was in his red suit as opposed to his black one. So anyways, that's all I have for this video. Those are my, rants about 9.6s and 9.8s. Let me know what you guys think. Drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.